our main event for our webinar today. We're going to talk about Natalie Lovell. Did I say that right? Okay, all right. And so Natalie has a bachelor's degree from Utah State University and a master's degree from Southern Utah University in communication. With experience in outreach and communication strategy, she helps to manage the Zero Fatalities and Safe Routes Utah programs. She has a passion for traffic safety and has given hundreds of safety presentations across the beautiful state of Utah and loves being out in the community working with kids, teens, and adults to keep them safe. Please help me welcome our guest of honor, Natalie Lovell.
Sweet, thank you. I will say I was not given the memo on flannels. I could have worn a flannel, but you know what? We're just happy to be here. So, like I said, though, I'm happy to be here today with Zero Fatalities. One of my favorite things about working with Zero Fatalities is it's all really reminders. Like anything we talk about today, none of it's new information, right? But as there are different seasons throughout the year, as we've just been driving for years, we all need reminders. So, just like Yvette said, we're going to be talking about driving in the winter. You know, the holidays are over, but we still have a lot of time left where the roads are going to be snowy, the roads are going to be icy, the roads are going to be wet. And so again, we all just need those reminders of how to drive a little bit better during this season. So to start off, I think we need to think about before we even get in the car, right? Which is just always being prepared, thinking about a few things ahead of time. I think a lot of us just think about these things throughout the year, but I think it's even more important during the winter. We need to make sure our gas tank is full, right? There could be times where maybe you get stuck in a crash out on the road, behind a crash, or your car breaks down or something, and you want to make sure that your gas tank is going to be full to also heat your car if you're in need of that. Wiper fluid, same thing, right? Especially too, if you can get that, it's like a de-icer that you can put in your fluid. It helps a little bit during these seasons. So being ahead of these things. Also dressing for the weather. My favorite thing is, you know, sometimes I do this as well. We're running to the store, something in the winter, we throw on the flip-flops and the shorts because we're just going to be fast. But you never know if something's going to happen. So it's best to be prepared. Make sure you got that puffy, you got some pants on, whatever, but dressing for that. Same thing with windshield wipers, right? I think it's so easy again throughout the year where our windshield wipers, we just use them. And oftentimes once the winter hits, we realize they're actually in crappy condition, right? They're cracking, they're splitting, they're not even doing their job. And then a storm hits and you're like, well, crap, this is doing me no good. So being ahead of that. And then same thing with winter tires. Whether you decide to actually get winter tires or all season tires, do what works best for your car, but making sure you get off the sports mode drive tires, if you will, right? So be prepared for that. Same things with keeping things in your car. I think this is a pretty extensive list, but it's also not limited to this. This is just to give you some ideas of some things that will be helpful, right? And again, a good reminder, because some of these things I take out during the rest of the year. Like I don't always have all these things, but flashlights, extra batteries, toe strap or tire chains, especially if you're going to be up in canyony areas or things. Obviously scrapers, that's just a no-brainer. Jumper cables, shovels, blankets, first aid kits, water, backup windshield wipers, extra clothes, things like this. So if your car does break down and you're stuck out there, you're not freezing your booty off, right? Like you're actually going to be prepared while you're waiting for help or while something is happening. So we can always be thinking ahead of time and get prepared. Take a look at your car later. Take a look at your family's cars, your kids' cars, whoever. Always being prepared is knowing before we go. I think we're all really good at this just because our phones are so easily at our hands these days, right? We're always checking our email, our social, whatever. But especially in the winter, we need to make sure we're checking the conditions of the weather as well as the roads. So a couple of resources I've got up here. The obvious one, the weather, right? I'm a hiker, and it always shocks me the times where I go out and hike and it's snowing or raining, and I was like, I didn't know this was going to happen, but then I'm like, wait, did I even check the weather? And I'm just assuming because I look out my bedroom window and it looks fine out there, right? But we need to check the weather because especially if you're going to be driving at night when the conditions change or things, with our job on Zero Fatalities, we travel all across the state very regularly, driving at all hours of the day. And so we need to make sure not just for, my drive into the office, but later that day, what should I be expecting? Or are there certain times on the roads that I maybe want to avoid? Like, there's a storm coming in this evening. I want to be off the roads before that. So be ahead of that. Same thing, UDOT also has some really great resources as well. I don't know if you're familiar with the UDOT traffic app. I've got a screenshot of that on the right, but this has a lot of cool things. First off, I don't know if you can see on there, but there's actually little snow plows. So I think that's really fun. You get to see where the snow plows are out on the road. So you know if they're out plowing where you're at or if they've already been out there. Another handy thing with this too is, if I don't know how well you can see that, but there's little blue cameras. So this is really cool because, especially like for if you're driving across the state, like if I'm going to Vernal, or I'm going to Carbon or wherever, I like to know the conditions of those roads. And I don't know, I live in Bountiful, right? So it could be sunny where I am, but that canyon could be a mess. And so it's cool because you can pull up that camera and it's not a video footage, but it's a still shot of, I don't remember the exact time, it's within the past couple minutes, so like it's recent, of what that looks like. And they're not, again, sometimes it's a little bit harder if it's nighttime, maybe the picture isn't super accurate, but for the most part, it's really helpful because I can pull it up and go, crap, it's a storm. What is it like 2 hours away from me? Oh, those are looking pretty good. Okay, you can keep an eye on that. The other thing too is the UDOT traffic on Twitter and other social feeds, they're also regularly posting updates. So look at this stuff before you hit the road, especially if you know a storm is coming in, be ahead of that. Now, once we get out to our car, this is a great example of maybe not quite what to do, right? I think we're always in a hurry, especially if your car is not in a garage or under a carport, it's getting covered with ice or snow or something you need to scrape off. We want to make sure we're fully scraping it off. I think for me, I'm a lot obviously better at this now, but I remember when I first started driving in high school, and I obviously, wasn't privy to a garage parking spot. I was out on the street as a high schooler, and so I would have to scrape my car. There'd be snow on it. And I was always stressed, of course, as a high schooler, because I'm like, well, I can't be late to school, so like, this is good enough, right? I can see enough, and then I go. And of course, we all know that that's not the smartest decision, right? I think, and then I always had to remind myself, okay, you know what? Even if I'm 5 or 10 or however many minutes late, this is going to be a much better decision to actually scrape off my car or whatever I need to do than what could happen, because you really can't see everything going on around you. And that's all windows. I think sometimes we even forget the side windows. I know I've done that before, where I maybe scrape the windshield and then I go to switch lanes and I'm like, crap, I totally didn't do the side windows. So making sure that we scrape the entire area of the car. And if you're not in a garage or a carport too, there are even things nowadays like products where my dad actually got me one of these in high school. He's pretty cool that way. Like a tarp thing, if you guys have seen that, where it like lays on the windshield and then you can actually just put a little strap around your side mirror. So anyway, there are things if you are worried about time, right? But otherwise, we do want to make sure that we are fully scraping or fully letting the car dethaw before we leave. Now, snow left on the car can be hazardous. I'm sure you have all seen things like this before too. This is actually from one of the many news stories that I've seen, unfortunately, where it's even more common, especially with the bigger semi trucks, right? You're driving down the road and the snow that they didn't clear off their car has now hardened into these big icy snow chunks, and it falls off as they're driving and you're behind them. And so this is what that's from right there. This is a cracked windshield that's from snowy ice packs coming off of the car in front of them and hitting them. So not only is it important for us to see through, but also, as much as we can, we really want to get the snow off the top of our car as well, and ways that it could be affecting other people on the road. So a good reminder for that. And again, we'll talk about this in a minute too, but this is also a good reason why we want to leave plenty of following distance with other cars on the road, right? In case they haven't done this, ice chunks fall off. I don't know if you guys have all had that before, but I was in a pickup, our work pickup truck, and I don't even think I was behind the semi very long, but these big chunks of snow came off, and it scared the crap out of me, right? Because they hit my windshield. Thankfully, nothing like this happened, but we got to make sure we're allowing for that. Okay, next up here, the biggest and most important one, in my opinion, is ice and slow. We got to make sure we're taking it slow. We work obviously closely with UHP, and from what they tell us and what we see on the roads, obviously too, the biggest contributing factor to these crashes is speeding. People are not slowing down and driving appropriate speeds for these conditions. It might be appropriate for you on a sunny day to drive that speed limit of 35 or 40 or 60 plus miles per hour, but in these conditions, maybe not so much. So first thing with that, we want to make sure we're driving under the speed limit. Now that sounds a little, maybe not the norm in Utah, right? We know even in good weather, even going the speed limit, I think is a bit of a challenge with what we see out on the roads. But especially in the winter, we want to make sure we're driving under that speed limit. And there's other situations out there too, but especially with this, and there's so many reasons for this. We know that our cars do not react the same way, right? We'll talk about more specifics with that. But again, we've got to leave ourselves room for reaction, especially with this stopping distance right here. So this will show you a few different speeds, how long it's going to take to your car to come to that complete stop in good, normal, ideal weather conditions, right? So sunny outside. If you look 65 miles per hour, we have higher freeway speeds than that here in Utah now, but it's going to take you over the length of a football field in good weather to stop. A neighborhood 25 miles per hour, good weather, it's going to take you over 20 yards. So again, what if the roads are snowy or slushy or icy or anything like that? I mean, it could even be double this, honestly. We need to make sure that we're accounting for that. And again, I think a lot of this comes to even the cars following us. Not only are we leaving that buffer room for us to react to things and to let our car adjust to different situations, but what about cars behind us? Again, I think we've all been in this situation, even in good weather, where we're reacting to maybe something on the freeway where we're slamming on our brakes or something. You look in your rearview mirror and you're like, shoot, like this car is totally going to rear end me. They don't, but I think we've all experienced that. And I think this even goes to show why we want to leave even more buffer room, so that if I have to slam on my brakes, maybe I don't need to slam quite as hard because I'm trying to leave them room too, to give them some reaction time, because they're maybe also not driving smart as they can be. Maybe they're tailgating, maybe they're going too fast. But again, we want to leave that space for others out on the road as well. So we got to make sure we're leaving ourselves time. I think we run in a very fast-paced world, right? We all like our beauty sleep in the morning too before we're getting ready to go to work, but we got to make sure we're leaving that time. Again, if you know there's going to be a snow, this could be timed in so many different ways, right? It could mean the time for you to actually clear off your car appropriately. It could mean time for, maybe you're going to get stuck behind a snowplow on the roads, or maybe there's a crash, or maybe there's just backed up traffic because a lot of people don't know how to drive in the snow, right? So making sure that you're leaving yourself time. Maybe it's even a day where you're going into work, but hey, you're going to wait an hour and you're able to do that with your job or something because you're going to wait until some of this clears up. Being aware that they'll leave yourself time, even shooting a text maybe before you hit the road, right, to your boss or your coworker or your spouse or whoever, saying, you know what, I'm going to be late. I'm not going to rush it and speed and try and get through this, but we'll just know that I'm going to be late. But making sure that you're giving yourself that time and planning ahead. I think this is another really good reminder, is the black ice. This is one that honestly is a big concern for me personally. I feel like half the time I'm driving out on the road, it's getting dark because it gets dark earlier, right? Hasn't even snowed in a couple days, but the roads might still be a little wet on and off throughout the day. Roads look fine, but all of a sudden you start to feel your tires. So I think this is just a really good reminder to just, even if it hasn't been snowing or roads look just fine, just to be extra aware of that, feel that in your car, drive a little bit slower, but a good reminder to look out for that black ice. Okay, another thing with our cars and how they react. We want to make sure that we're avoiding quick stops, quick accelerations, and quick turns. Again, normal conditions, it might be totally cool for your car to take that turn at whatever normal speed, or to get off of that line of your now green light to just accelerate like normal. But that's oftentimes when our car is going to end up, maybe spinning out or going off in a funny way or things. So just do it slowly, right? Don't be in a rush when you're going to accelerate off that green light or whatever. Take it slowly. When you're going to brake, try and ease into it as much as you can. Same with turning, so that we can just avoid spinning out, going into other lanes, going into curves, going into things like that. I think the biggest thing is really just having that patience, right? Which I think we all know, again, something here in Utah we all need to work on out on the roads, but especially during these winter times. Next up is that cruise control. Okay, this is something we actually don't want to use in any of these conditions. It's not just snow, but it's also just rain, and for a couple of reasons. First off, the conditions and situations of the road are constantly changing. So you want to be in complete control. So if all of a sudden it gets icy or snowy or whatever, you can react to that and be in control as the driver. But the other thing too, cruise control is designed to set your car at a set speed, right, and maintain that speed. Well, once your tires hit a surface that is slowing that down, like water or hydroplaning or ice, your tires are going to go faster to maintain that speed. So it's going to put you in a more dangerous situation as your car reacts to that when it hits something that would slow it down. So anytime, again, rain, snow, anything like that, I mean, I'm pretty OCD about this. If there's even just a little bit of water on the road and maybe I'm driving to southern Utah for work or something, as much as I would love to use cruise control, I just don't worry about it. I want to make sure that I'm in control that way. The next one too, this is kind of an obvious one, right? But always buckle up. Again, I think this presentation is all about reminders. We all know that seatbelts are the single most effective thing to save our life in a crash. Winter is no different, so just a good reminder to make sure before you hit the roads, as you're rushing in the morning after you just scraped your car, right? Make sure they get that seatbelt on. Now, this is my favorite piece to talk about because there's honestly, we could do a whole presentation on just driving around snowplows. But as we know, we are grateful for all the many snowplow drivers here in Utah, our local guys and gals out on the roads, as well as the especially bigger ones out on our main interstates and stuff. believe it or not, we have a lot of people in Utah who will try and pass snowplows when they're out plowing.
I believe it.
Now, I see the face on a lot of you guys, right? And it's like, well, that seems like common sense, right? Like, why would you pass a snowplow? I mean, they're literally plowing the road to make it easier and safer for you to drive on. But again, I think people just don't think about it, or they're in a hurry, and they will literally try and go around them or go in between them. And this is a big train, right? We call it a snowplow train out on the interstate. But even when there's just one or two plows, it's the same thing. You have people trying to get around them. Well, let's just talk about this snowplow just for a second. Okay, even this just little guy, which is not really that little, but compared to a tow plow like this one right here, okay, he weighs 60,000 plus pounds when he's fully loaded down with salt. How much does our car weigh? 3,000 to 4,000 pounds on average, right? Maybe a little bit more. So first off, weight comparison, it is a lot bigger than us. Okay, in fact, I've been told that even just that front plow that you see, that main blade, I've been told that that weighs as much as my car in just steel. So that alone, right, like we're really not in a good fight comparison, if that's the best way to put it, right, weight-wise. Second off, of course, as we know, they're spraying all sorts of stuff behind them. They've got salt, they've got brine, they've got sand, all sorts of different things to help our conditions out on the road. Is that good for our cars? No. Okay, so that's kind of the minor of it. Then on top of it, let's talk about their blind spots. Okay, we go around to schools across the state and just talk about regular semi-trucks and their blind spots, but snowplows are even more unique because not only do they have the typical blind spots on the sides of them, in front and behind them, but what conditions are they plowing in? Right? So this isn't even ideal sunny conditions where you have really big blind spots around these really big trucks, but this is a dash cam video right here. I think it's actually a chest cam. So did I hear the sound online? It's okay if we can't. Oh, there we go. And I actually turned the volume way down when I added this. Like when I got this footage, it was so freaking loud. The problem is, we can hardly see. Right? They've got snow coming off of the blade. They've got snow coming down. There's like fire coming. I think they're going to be walking in there. That they're driving is like braille in these storms. They know where the curves are and they feel for the curves. So again, I think really the moral of that is we just want to leave these snowplows their space out on the road and let them do their thing. I've even heard stories from some of these snowplow drivers where a car will be on the side of the road. Fortunately, nobody's in it, but they don't even see it because of the conditions and how high up again they are above that blade, and they'll actually start pushing that car. They won't even feel. I've heard stories where another plow driver on the road has had a radio them being like, dude, you've got a car in front of you. So unfortunately, oftentimes the people are okay in these situations. But again, I think these are just really good illustrations for us. We don't want to mess with the snowplows, right? Let them do their thing. Just give them their space out of the road. And oftentimes they are going slower, right? A big reason for that is if, say, this plow, and maybe this isn't as good an example because they've at least got this barrier for the other side of traffic. But if you're on a regular city road, right, and there's a lane right here, the opposite direction, and he's flying down the road going 50 miles per hour, he's going to cream those other cars with the sleet and the ice and everything, the sludge that he's pushing up. So they have to go slower for a lot of reasons. So just, again, going back to what we were earlier with the time thing, just expect that, right? And don't be in a rush to get around them. You're safer behind them anyways, but just expect that they're going to be going 25, 30, maybe 35 miles per hour. That's probably going to be their max out on the roads. But again, we want to help them out and let them do their thing. Here are just a couple minor examples, mine I had that we have some crash pictures from that. They can do a lot of damage. And again, they don't want that either. I mean, they're out there trying to help us plow the road. So again, I think moral story, I like to tell the high schoolers, I don't care if you have 4-wheel drive and some big old jacked up F-350, right? Or if you're in a hurry, like you're never going to get in a good fight with a snowplow. So just leave them space. Don't ever try and pass them. In fact, by law, when their plow is down and their lights are flashing, we are supposed to treat them just like any other emergency vehicle. So in other words, like a fire truck, like an ambulance, you would treat them the same way. Where, I mean, if the fire truck's out there with lights on, I'm not going to go pass it. I mean, and again, there's lots of reasons for this too. We just want to be safer behind them. But same thing, treat them like an emergency vehicle. Let them do their thing out on the roads. Heads up. Sorry. One thing on this I was going to say, if you do get in a crash out on the roads, this is for any time of year, but especially in the winter, we do have more crashes that time of year. We have more fatalities on our roads during the summer, but we have more crashes in the winter. If you are involved in a crash, I wanted to put this in here just as a reminder of what to do. So here's a fun little animation for that.
Heads up, Utah.
Wondering what to do if you get in a fender bender on the freeway? Follow these 3 simple steps. 1. Move to the right. 2. Stay in your car. 3. Call 911. Following these steps will help keep you and those around you safe.
Also add that too, if you're pulled over waiting for emergency responders, keep your seatbelt on actually. You'd be surprised how many people pull over and they're not buckled up and somebody hits them. Well, they're still the same physics. So keep your seatbelt on while you're waiting for emergency responders or help to come on the way. And last up here, this is kind of a simple, easy one, but just stay home. If you're not confident or comfortable, at least a little bit, in those winter conditions out there, or if, like I say, if maybe it's an opportunity where work, for example, you can work from home that day instead of having to tough the storm to get into the office, just stay at home, right? I mean, there's definitely times I think we've all felt like, well, we just got to get to where we're going and we're driving white knuckle and it's pretty stressful and that's okay. I think we need to do that at times, but I think as much as we can to just avoid being on the roads in these situations. Again, part of my biggest fear with this too is other drivers. I mean, knock on wood, right? I'm not a perfect driver in winter conditions, but I like to think I'm, I try to do what we preach here, and I get terrified of these other drivers on the road. They're flying past me, right, in these storms and whatever they're driving, and I'm like, well, when are they going to hit some black ice, or when are they going to, start spinning out and hit me? So again, as much as we can just avoid that, make sure that you're comfortable, make sure you know the conditions of the road as best as you can before you get out there, and help other people out in your circles as well, your loved ones, your coworkers. Be aware of them. If you're aware that they're driving somewhere, if there's ways that you can help, be aware of what's in their car. And yeah, just some helpful reminders for us to all stay safe this next couple months. So thank you.
Give her one more round of applause. Oh, we've actually got quite a few things. My page there's almost filled up with notes now. I'm going to reach out to you for a bunch of questions about the going around the snow plows. I'm not guilty, but I'm very curious. You guys, thank you so much for joining us today for our Start with Safety webinar, our first one for the year of 2025. I am super excited for the rest of the year. We've got some great topics coming up for you guys. And if you guys actually have any ideas and would like to actually speak at our webinars or would like to make an announcement, reach out to us and we can get you on here and make you famous. Our next Start with Safety webinar is in February on the 5th. Heart Safety Month. Who's excited for heart safety? I am. I love CPR. You guys, please join us virtually, in person. We are super welcoming. We are nice people here at the Safety Council. We are just super excited to meet all of you who haven't met us already. And with that being said, stay safe, everyone.
Going a little early, my apologies.